In India, you can lie to eternity and no court punishes anybody. बहुत बिजनेसमैन झूठ बोलते हैं और बहुत बिजनेस विमेन झूठ बोलती हैं. जैसे ही केस आने लगता है सब लोग की इनकम ज़ीरो हो जाती हैं और लोग मेरे पास आते हैं जब उनकी शादी अभी टूटी हुई हो और बच्चे 1-1 साल के हों. फिर लोग आगे कहते हैं अच्छा मैम अब 2 महीने और डेट होने दो, 6 महीने और डेट होने दो, क्योंकि अब तो हमारा बच्चा शादी की लायक हो गया, 21 साल का हो गया. बच्चे की तो हम इकट्ठे शादी करा देते हैं, फिर तलाक करा लेंगे. बट ये क्या कानून है?
Hi ma'am, welcome to AfterHours. It's such a pleasure to have you. I've been super excited to have this conversation because among many things that are widely discussed, I think of course the Indian legal system and the laws around divorce happens to be a conversation that so many people my age are having. So I thought that you would be the best person to have this conversation with. So thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me. Of course, subject of divorce, and particularly with the way the rate is expanding so rapidly in India, that's become a subject which is really topical.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and the whole ethos of this generation has changed qua divorce.
Could you elaborate on that? Because, you know, you see this every day. You're dealing with, you know, people who come to you for exactly this. What do you think, as you said, the rate is increasing tremendously. What do you think are the primary factors that are leading to this increasing rate in divorces?
So I'll answer that question in a few parts.
Sure.
One, the part about why is it increasing and what are the causes, I'll answer a little later. What is the change I wanted to tell you?
Yeah.
So the change is that when I started practice 40 years ago, most women would come and say, we are not ready for divorce. We will not give a divorce. We're not a wrongdoer. We will not give divorce. And I would sometimes have judges asking me, Ms. Luthra, why doesn't your client want to settle? And the fact is that they didn't want to settle. You can't force a person to settle whatever the price if they are not ready for the price. If they feel that they want to hang on to that concept that they are married, then the Hindu Marriage Act, for example, treats it as sacred, and you, unless there is a good reason for it. So it's a question of a fault divorce vis-a-vis now a Western concept, which is a no-fault divorce. So the fault divorce needed a fault. And girls were just not ready to be called divorcees. Parents were not ready to have their daughters called divorcees. So while to some extent many men had moved on, vis-a-vis the male partner in a marriage, women and their parents had not moved on. And so we would always get this, why can't you settle? Can't you see this marriage is dead for the last 5-7 years? But the girl has to be willing.
Yeah.
We couldn't bully her.
Yeah.
You know, you can take a horse to water, you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
You can't, and you have to go by your client's instructions. So you would explain to the court that, look, she feels she's not a wrongdoer, and so she's well within her rights to refuse.
Yeah.
But sometimes for a court that's looking at a matter, these people are going on for the last 10-15 years. It's a cantankerous matter. Why can't we just call it a day? Why can't she agree to a sum? Why can't she agree to a visitation? You know, all those aspects, courts could not understand it. Today, we have a different environment. Today, there will be girls who still go by the ethos that, and they are within their rights. I'm the first person to say that. They are within their rights if they don't want to give a divorce. But a lot of even the older generation, even the younger generation today are ready to call it a day. If the figures are right, if their comfort is right, if their right of residence is right, you know, after 3-4 years of litigation, people are not ready. I was in court, I think it was day before, and one of the judges said, but you're fighting for the last 30 years. This person's not coming back to you. Why do you want to fight? And she said, I'm not ready to give a divorce. And the judge said, you brought up your son. He's now going to engineering college. You've done it alone.
Move on.
You know, move on.
Yeah.
But she was not ready to. And there will be those cases. But there will be a lot of cases where people no longer think divorce is a taboo. People move on to their second marriage, move on to a third marriage. And so Indian society is really in a dichotomy. There are those who are perhaps, who don't think the institution of marriage is so important that if they walk out of the marriage, go live with another person, they are not governed by the middle class ethos. There are those who are the middle class ethos, some who have moved on, girls are working, girls are empowered. Even if they're not working, they're not empowered, they feel this is a matter of my dignity. If this person doesn't want to live with me,
so be it.
So be it.
Yeah.
So there is, and then there's another very fluid small class, which is the upper echelons of society, who do not think it's a taboo at all. So the poor middle class keeps getting caught between the taboo and thinking, no, this is not acceptable. They're moving. There is a change. But we are talking of a rural India, we're talking of a urban India, we are talking of an elite India, and we are talking of a middle class India. There's a huge dichotomy. It's almost as if you are in 4 different countries. And you know, you have one law. So you, on one hand, somebody is saying, okay, let's bring in no-fault divorce. And then there is this huge fact, let's save the Indian marriage. This is sacred to us. And there's a pullback. And the balance is so difficult because we have so many Indias within one India.
Agreed. You know, you're absolutely right. And it does make me wonder that, you know, have the reasons for divorce also evolved? Jaise ki, you know, you're saying this one person who for 30 years, wo ready nahi ho rahi move on karne ke liye. You know, in your experience, aap itne divorces handle karte ho. What are the current most like prominent reasons why people are choosing or opting to get a divorce? Agar 3-4 aise ho to.
So it's a very interesting fact that several years ago in England, a person called up a doctor and said, I will be bringing a person with broken legs. And then he broke his wife's legs and then took her there. So what I am saying is, that was the time when cruelty needed to be physical cruelty. So to answer your question, ये एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो समय समय से बदल रही है. So एक 1975 का केस है जो कि हम बहुत रेफर करते हैं, दस्ताने वर्सेस दस्ताने, कि भाई कोई कहता है कि मेरा चाय का कप इस लेवल पे होना चाहिए तो ये क्रूल्टी है. सो यू हैव टू डिटर्मिन कि रीजनेबल मैन की क्रूल्टी क्या है. तो रीजनेबल पर्सन की क्रूल्टी फिजिकल क्रूल्टी भी है, मेंटल क्रूल्टी भी है. मेंटल क्रूल्टी कैन बी somebody nagging you too much. somebody blame finding you that you're calling people of the opposite sex while you are in a marriage and talking to them for hours.
Yeah.
So it goes in a huge spectrum, and the spectrum is really big.
Emotional or physical abuse का spectrum basically.
Absolutely. Or emotional abuse का spectrum. In a recent case pertaining to a US case, now a lady comes and says, and the court wasn't understanding it because वो कह रही है कि मैं जब US में कनेक्टिकट में रहती हूँ तो टेम्परेचर्स वहाँ -डिग्रीज में हैं, बट माई हस्बैंड इज सो माइजरली that he doesn't let me put the heating on and our child keeps falling in.
Oh God.
So the judge is saying, but this is only an economic thing. It can't be called cruelty. I mean, this is your internal fight. Now for that girl, it's a very important thing. She feels, मेरा बच्चा बीमार पड़ रहा है, he's getting pneumonia, I am having to bring him back to India. So what is cruelty is a changing concept.
Got it.
पहले मारना was cruelty. Today, saying something rude, saying something, imputing anything to a morality of a person is cruelty. If you are suspicious of your husband checking his mobile all the time, maybe cruelty to the husband. Look, we have to see it from both perspectives. That on one hand, you want that you should be trusted. If you want to be trusted, you have to trust the other spouse. But in today's day, people are not trusting because society is becoming very fluid.
Correct.
ये वो ज़माना तो है नहीं कि the girls are now staying only in the house. So, you know, there's no fear that there's not going to be adultery.
Yeah.
So, you see,
पर वो अडल्ट्री तो जब हस्बैंड बाहर थे वो भी तो कर ही सकते थे, तो
हस्बैंड्स करते थे, पर किसी के साथ तो करते थे. If the wives don't come out, or women don't come out to work, the opportunity for adultery was very little.
Correct.
Today, the opportunity and the temptation to commit adultery, you're working together, you're going for a professional assignment together. Something can happen. It may be an unintentional happening, but it can happen. तो मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि adultery, cruelty, ये सब evolving concepts हैं.
पर इन concepts की वजह से ज़्यादातर divorce होते हैं.
So, when I was saying कि I will answer this part of the question later, adultery was not a very big concept not a very big ground for divorce under the Hindu Marriage Act.
Okay.
For Christians, it was an essential item under the Indian Divorce Act. कि तुम adultery के साथ तुम्हारी cruelty है, adultery के साथ तुम्हारी desertion है. So the ethos for Christian marriages, where again they said divorce is taboo, was very, very high. For Hindu Marriage Act marriages was high. For Muslim marriages, it's contractual. So it's obviously, and people may not even divorce that much because तुम्हें पता है कि you can maybe in earlier times get another wife without doing the divorce. It's only when maintenance and other issues started coming in that they thought maybe divorce is a good idea. Otherwise, they may not have thought it's a good idea. So, how is the concept expanding? Concept has gone. So, आप ये सोचो, there are 3 aspects of divorce: oblique, cancellation or dissolution of marriage. One is nullity. A person who is married plays a fraud and doesn't tell the spouse that he's been married, and marries again. That marriage is null. I mean, that's just an example because I'm not going to give you every possible case. Then there'll be cases of fraud. Somebody who is say pregnant by another person and they get married.
Got it.
That's annulment. Or more significant, somebody who's done a blatant cheating with regard to their person. You have an arranged marriage, you do it through a shadi.com. I mean, I don't know, whichever portal that you may do it. You do it through a portal and you say that I am an MSc.
आपने झूठ बोला है.
बिल्कुल झूठ बोला है, हर चीज़ पे झूठ बोला है, अपने परिवार पे झूठ बोला है, अपनी पे पैकेट पे झूठ बोला है, because these are arranged marriages. And then you may meet each other and then, you know, develop a friendship, but basically it's on representations with biodatas, with
Correct.
CVs, with all that. आपने झूठ बोला है तो those are grounds of fraud. And then there are divorces. So these are the three major categories.
Got it.
Nullity, annulment, divorce. Divorce, आपने ये पूछा कि क्या कारण बदल गए हैं, तो हाँ बिल्कुल बहुत बदल गए हैं. तुम बहुत कम केसेस अडल्ट्री के देखते थे, हम मेंटल क्रूअल्टी के कोई केसेस नहीं देखते थे. जो मेंटल क्रूअल्टी के केसेस थे, इन्होंने मेरे लिए खाना नहीं बनाया, नाश्ता नहीं बनाया, यू नो दोज टिपिकल where a girl is sort of put in a caste and said this is her role.
Yeah.
You're not looking after the children, you're not looking after my parents. All those things have changed.
Yeah.
Law has completely changed. They're not saying that the woman has necessarily to move where the spouse is. You may have two homes. He may move to your home. He may move to where you work. So, concept of cruelty has really, really evolved. Now, there'll be cases where somebody is of such a schizophrenic nature, has mental diseases of a nature that it's impossible to live. So all those are not such, I mean, they are very obvious grounds of divorce.
Yeah.
But cruelty from its very
Physical form.
grey, from its very grey to its black form is a huge spectrum.
Got it.
And that is evolving, and the courts are becoming more and more liberal in granting divorce for grounds which were not cruel earlier will now be treated
As cruelty.
as cruelty.
आपके एक्सपीरियंस में जितने भी आपने केसेस हैंडल करे हैं, ज़्यादा डिवोर्स इज़ इट द मेन हु आस्क फॉर इट और इज़ इट द वुमेन हु आस्क फॉर इट? एक सवाल ये है कि फाइल करने की तरफ या इनिशिएट करने के लिए कौन सा जेंडर पहल करता है, और दूसरा इन टर्म्स ऑफ अब्यूज़ जो हमने क्रूअल्टी की बात करी, वो भी कौन सा जेंडर ज़्यादा इनिशिएट करता है आपके एक्सपीरियंस में?
So, first answer, cruelty women ज़्यादा करती हैं initiate. Reason
divorce.
उसका ये है, not just divorce. See, Domestic Violence Act is a gender sensitive act. तो खाली women, जैसे इंग्लैंड में, UK में, both men and women can come under Domestic Violence Act. US में both men and women come under Domestic Violence Act. मतलब आदमी भी इनिशिएट कर सकता है, औरत भी इनिशिएट कर सकती है, और उसमें वो कहते हैं अबाउट 1/3 केसेस ऐसे होते हैं जो कि मेन की क्रूअल्टी के केसेस साबित हुए हैं, 2/3 women की क्रूअल्टी, मेन की क्रूअल्टी के हैं, और 1/3 women ने जो क्रूअल्टी की है वो साबित हुए हैं. पर इंडिया में बिकॉज दे फील कि अभी जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी इतनी हाई है कि दिस लॉ इज़ अ जेंडर सेंसिटिव लॉ, ओनली विमेन कैन कम. इसलिए एंड एवरीबडी थिंक्स कि डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट इज़ अ पार्टली क्रिमिनल लॉ बिकॉज यू फाइल इट इन द मैजिस्ट्रेट्स कोर्ट, तो लोगों को ये नहीं इल्म कि ये एक सिविल रेमेडी है, ये क्रिमिनल रेमेडी नहीं है, एंड इट्स वेरी वेरी प्रो विमेन. सो it has increased the probability of women filing more than men.
Interesting.
So this is under the Domestic Violence Act. Because मुझे लगता है कि आज की डेट में जो तलाक के केसेस फाइल होते हैं, एटलीस्ट 40, 50, 60%, बिकॉज बहुत से ग्राउंड्स है. मैं बाकी ग्राउंड्स, somebody suffering from a virulent disease, somebody having schizophrenia, somebody, all these are
सारे मिला
provisions.
हाँ.
क्रूअल्टी के मुझे लगता है 50-60% केस होंगे, एटलीस्ट आउट ऑफ ऑल द केसेस.
और वो आप कह रहे हैं कि औरतें ज़्यादा
पर डाइवोर्स के केस में there will be a equal number. Because domestic violence क्योंकि खाली women कर सकती हैं तो उनके खाली केस होते हैं, पर cruelty वाले केस क्योंकि ये सबसे easy ground है divorce का.
Got it. तो
इसलिए मुझे लगता है कि equal proportion में women and men करते होंगे. Adultery के cases में तुम्हें जो अडल्टरर है उसको पार्टी बनाना पड़ता है जिससे अडल्ट्री की है. तो उसका नाम, उसका पता, कहाँ अडल्ट्री की, कब कब की,
ये सब
कुछ सबूत तो होना चाहिए, क्योंकि तुम नहीं तो कोई भी अडल्ट्री का केस बना लेगा. तो इसलिए अडल्ट्री में जिसके साथ अडल्ट्री की है वो पार्टी होता है. अब उसमें बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात है कि क्या ज़्यादा मेन डालते हैं कि ज़्यादा विमेन डालती हैं. ये एक आज की डेट में बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है. पहले की डेट में मैंने जैसे कहा बहुत कम केसेस विमेन के अगेंस्ट अडल्ट्री के आते थे, पर आज की डेट में मुझे लगता है कि कोई डिफरेंस नहीं होगा. उतनी ही लेडीज और विमेन डालती हैं अडल्ट्री के केसेस और उतने ही मेन डालते हैं.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग.
बस एक फ़र्क है, अगर किसी, एंड इस केस में क्या होता है कि बहुत सी विमेन हैव चिल्ड्रन आउटसाइड द मैरिज, तो फिर डीएनए टेस्टिंग से वो प्रूव हो जाता है कि दिस चाइल्ड इज़ नॉट माइन. बहुत हस्बैंड्स आते हैं, और मुझे ये याद इसलिए आ रहा है क्योंकि आज ही किसी ने मुझे क्वेरी इस बात की पूछी थी. सो बहुत से केसेस ऐसे आते हैं कि डीएनए टेस्टिंग क्या कोर्ट अलाउ करेगी टू एस्टैब्लिश कि ये मेरा बच्चा नहीं है, और उससे एस्टैब्लिश हो जाएगा कि ये लेडी अडल्ट्री में थी, अदरवाइज तुम्हारा बच्चा होगा.
करेक्ट.
पर उससे तुम पैटर्निटी भी उस आदमी की डिनाई कर रहे हो, बिकॉज जो आदमी कहेगा देन ही विल से कि मेरा बच्चा नहीं है, तो पैटर्निटी इज बीइंग डिसप्रूव्ड. द कोर्ट्स फील, एंड ये रीसेंट जजमेंट्स हैं, पहले जजमेंट्स थी कि डीएनए टेस्टिंग शुड बी अलाउड टू डिटर्मिन पैटर्निटी और नॉन पैटर्निटी. पर अब कोर्ट्स थोड़ा हेजिटेट कर रही हैं, कह रही हैं इसके बाद तो तुम बच्चे को बास्टर्डाइज कर दोगे. तो मेरा तो अपना व्यू है कि एक्चुअली इफ देयर इज अडल्ट्री, देयर इज अडल्ट्री. यू आर नॉट बास्टर्डाइजिंग द चाइल्ड, क्योंकि फिर वो किसी का तो बच्चा है. और दूसरी बात है कि बाय दैट टाइम जो नॉन रियल पेरेंट हो, नॉन नेचुरल फादर होगा, उसको भी प्यार बहुत बढ़ जाता है बच्चे से. तो ये नहीं कि वो बच्चे को डिसोन कर देगा अपनी वाइफ को डिसोन करने के लिए, पर ये एक बहुत साइंटिफिक मेथड है टू डिटर्मिन दैट हैज देयर बीन अडल्ट्री.
ऑफ कोर्स, ऑब्वियस, सबसे ऑब्वियस वे तो यही हुआ फिर. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. अच्छा, क्योंकि एंड दिस इज़ वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट, मैं अपने बहुत दोस्तों में भी देखती हूँ, एंड आई फील लाइक सो मैनी ऑफ देम परहैप्स शुड नॉट बी इन द मैरिजेस दैट देयर इन. बट आई थिंक द वन थिंग दैट always stops them or deters them from not being in an unhappy marriage is the lack of financial stability. And it does make me wonder then that what is the Indian legal system's view on alimony? Like, how does one go about that, and what is it determined on the basis of?
I think ये बहुत ही एक्चुअली इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल है. इंटरेस्टिंग इसलिए कि बहुत से लोग शादियों में रहते हैं जबकि उनको पता है कि ये शादी चल नहीं रही. कई लोग दिखावे के लिए रहते होंगे, बट क्वेश्चन वो है कि जो शादी में इसलिए हैं क्योंकि उनको फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी है, उसका क्या, इज देयर अ सॉल्यूशन? कैन वी फाइंड अ सॉल्यूशन फॉर देम? So this is very interesting actually, but the fact is that we just do not have a good system to determine maintenance and alimony. Courts ने बहुत ही एक idealistic system कहा हुआ है कि women को 1/3 to 1/4 of the income मिलनी चाहिए. 1/3 to 1/4 is not unreasonable if she is not working. But the fact in India is कि बहुत businessmen झूठ बोलते हैं और बहुत business women झूठ बोलती हैं. जैसे ही केस आने लगता है सब लोग की इनकम्स ज़ीरो हो जाती हैं, सब लोगों के पैसे बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो जाते हैं. अब इंडिया में देयर इज़ अ प्रॉब्लम. एक टूल है डिस्कवरी का. सो डिस्कवरी इज़ अ वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट टूल, एंड दैट इज़ कि तुम अगर तुम्हारा स्पाउस सच नहीं बोले कि मेरी इनकम क्या है या मेरी बिजनेसेस क्या हैं, तो कोर्ट उनसे निकाल लेगा. एंड दूसरा, अगर वो सच नहीं बोले तो कोर्ट उनको पर्जरी के लिए होल्ड करेगा और मेंटेनेंस बहुत एनहांस कर देगा. So
it's like you'll be punished to lie, to have lied in the first place.
Punished to lie. So, I mean, it's like one of my clients, not in India, abroad, was saying that, look, if I am caught lying, just the fact will weigh with the judge. He is going to take 70% and give it to my wife.
Yeah.
In India, that doesn't happen. You can lie to eternity and no court punishes anybody. No court punishes anybody. In fact, courts ने तो stamp of approval दे दी है कि देखो भाई, मेंटेनेंस के मामले में और इनकम के मामले में तो सब थोड़ा बहुत झूठ सच तो बोलेंगे ही. तो the fact is we can't, this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And you have to have discovery. कोई अपने शेयर्स बेच देगा and bring it to zero till they get the divorce. After they will bring it back to 80% of the shares of the company. Nobody should allow it. No court should accept it.
Agree. But अगर trust का format हो फिर?
तो अगर trust का format हो, then nobody can do anything, particularly in India.
तो ये एक वे है अपनी वेल्थ को प्रोटेक्ट करने का फिर?
बिल्कुल वे है, और ये बाहर के देशों में बहुत ही अडॉप्ट किया जाता है. Because it's not that I will have complete access to my property. I will have some access to the income from that.
As a beneficiary of that trust.
But not that I am the owner of 20 crores or 5 crores or 10 crores. So this trust mechanism actually needs to be adopted both by parents to see कि हम लोगों का झगड़ा हो तो the child should not be deprived.
Got it.
And parent will also not mind, because a husband may be anti his wife, they may be bitter against each other.
But you're doing
wife,
it in the interest of your child.
But when it's the child and it's a trust, and you are one of the trustees perhaps, you may not mind it as much, because you'll say ultimately mere bacche ko jayega, particularly when he's a little older, or he needs an education which is a qualification which is expensive. Because let's see this, that today's schooling has become expensive. Earlier schooling was not so expensive.
Correct.
It was the 17, 18 to 21, 25 years which were really exorbitant.
Yeah.
कि तुम अपने बच्चे को कह रहे हो, okay, I will send you to International Business School, I will send you to MBA to Ahmedabad, I will send you to Jindal Law School, wherever you may send the child. But the fact is, that's your major chunk.
Yeah.
And every parent, particularly a non-working parent, will think कि आज if I settle for 20 lakhs, मेरे को बच्चे की fees which is 50 lakhs a year, when he is doing 17, 18, 19, how will I afford it? So there has to be something which has to be read in for the child, and nothing better than a trust if one can make a trust. चाहे दोनों parents करे, if both are working, and one parent does if one is working. Plus the trust gives you the ability to do it not in one lump sum, but to keep adding to that portfolio.
Correct. So you can even do it at your own pace slowly. It's not like suddenly there's this major outflow that's on your head.
That's right.
When you're trying a settlement.
That's right.
You know, speaking of this, ma'am, why are prenups not legal in India?
Why are prenups not legal in India? I'll tell you, as I told you, there are many Indias. There's not one India.
Correct.
If prenups were legal in India before getting married, many husbands would get their wives to write a prenup, because at that time you are sometimes in an unequal position. So if you are equal position, prenups should be legal.
Interesting.
So there is as I said, there are many Indias. If there's a equally empowered husband, equally empowered wife, why should a prenup not be legal?
Yeah.
It should be legal.
Yeah.
Because, and all the people who come to me for prenups are cases of second, third, fourth marriages.
They're jaded.
So they say, once bitten, twice shy, we want a prenup. And I keep saying, I say, but prenups in that sense are not totally tested in India. Postnup, if you are having a separation, if it's recognized by the courts, then by the same criteria, if you've done it 5 days before and it's a prenup, it's illogical why it's not recognized by that logic.
Yeah, true.
See, at separation, agreement is recognized and courts will acknowledge it, because they think that now the woman has come in an equal bargaining position, or the man is in an equal bargaining position. Woman becomes equal because she knows she can file a criminal case, she knows she can file a DV, she knows to get a divorce she will get 5 years or 7 years, the legal system will take. So the courts think, okay, now
the power dynamic is settled.
Power dynamic is settled. But it's not there when it is a prenup. Feeling ये है कि जैसे आप डाउरी मांगते हैं और डाउरी आपको दी जाती है, आप तिलक मांगते हैं in places like Bihar and UP, तो husband gets tilak from the bride. Why do you get that? All this is क्योंकि तुम unequal हो.
Correct.
Because girls की वो position नहीं है. तो feeling ये है कि prenup, क्योंकि लड़कियों की वो strength की position शादी के पहले नहीं है, should we recognize prenup जब हम ये कह रहे हैं कि हिंदू रीति रिवाज, विच इज़ द मेजर रिलीजन, हिंदू रीति रिवाज में शादी एक सेक्रेड चीज़ है जिसको कोई ऐसे आके तोड़ नहीं सकते। ये नहीं कि तुम आओगे और 2 महीने बाद कहोगे आई वांट अ न्यू वाइफ, आई एम ब्रेकिंग दिस मैरिज। वाइफ कम्स आफ्टर 2 months, आई हैव अ चाइल्ड, आई एम वॉकिंग आउट विद द चाइल्ड, मुझे ये शादी नहीं रखनी, बिकॉज दे आर ट्राइंग टू ट्रीट मैरिज एज सेक्रेड। फैमिलीज इन्वॉल्व होती हैं, सब लोग इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, शादी खाली लड़का लड़की की नहीं होती है, वो माँ बाप रिश्तेदार सब लोग
पूरा
बीच
टब्बर।
में पूरा टब्बर इन्वॉल्व होता है। सो इसलिए ये जो प्रीनप का कॉन्सेप्ट है, ऑल्दो आई एम ऑल इन फेवर ऑफ इट, so that somebody is not being a gold digger,
Yeah.
and
और ये दोनों
second,
genders के केस में हो सकता है।
दोनों, और दूसरा कि गर्ल्स ऑल्सो फील सिक्योर, ये नहीं कि वो 10 साल कोर्ट में झगड़ती
लटकाएगा,
रहें और फिर उनको कुछ मिले। यू नो, मेंटेनेंस जब तक नहीं मिलेगी, एलिमनी नहीं मिलेगी, सालों साल तक तुम वेट करोगे। तो देयर इज समथिंग गुड अबाउट प्रीनप्स, but the question is,
Do we live in a
We
society
have-
that's progressive enough for it?
yes, in a equal society before marriage, if we are a equal society before marriage, or if a girl is equally empowered before marriage, then I think prenup should be recognized. After all, look at the Muslim religion. They have a nikah-nama and they say this is the meher, this is the amount you'll pay. But it's a very
Small.
modest amount. It is not equivalent most of the time to what you will get as maintenance.
मुझे भी लगता है वैसे होना चाहिए। आई थिंक ये बहुत लोगों की लाइफ काफ़ी सॉल्व कर देगा, क्योंकि आप प्रिडिक्ट तो, बट आई थिंक दैट्स सम इमोशनैलिटी अटैच्ड टू इट, क्योंकि लोगों को लगता है कि आप शादी करने से पहले ही ऑलरेडी सोच रहे हो कि व्हाट इफ दिस मैरिज डज नॉट वर्क आउट।
You know, I've had people, clients come to me and say that my wife is agreeing to the prenup, but she feels very unhappy with it. She says, that means you're not trusting me.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much emotionality attached to it. Especially, this is a conversation I've had with some of my friends, and I've realized that the women are far more emotional about this than the men. But that's a very small data set, so I don't want to consider that to be the norm. But
So exactly, it's a small data set, and therefore, even today, many people go get married abroad, do a prenup because it's recognized in that country, and come and live back in India. So there are people who try to get around it. Of course, the girl can file a proceeding and say that, look, we were both in India and this is, and then it'll be again a
Long
big
run,
round
yeah.
of litigation.
ma'am, why do divorces take so long? Like, again, it's all anecdotal data that I have, which is that, I know people who've been trying to get divorced, and then वो एक तो मैं आपसे पूछूंगी कि बाद में कि प्रोसीजर क्या होता है, बट द वन कंप्लेंट है कि बहुत खिंच जाता है, चाहे वो कस्टडी के बारे में हो, एलिमनी के बारे में हो। हमारे देश में इतना लंबा क्यों चलता है डिवोर्स? ऐसे क्या रोड ब्लॉक्स है?
Apart from divorce, I want to talk about custody. मैं दोनों के बारे में बात करना चाहती हूँ, because मुझे लगता है कि custody में जो urgency है वो divorce में है या नहीं है. It can be still a little debatable कि इन लोगों की ज़िंदगी तो ख़त्म हो ही गई है, पर एक नए बच्चे की ज़िंदगी जिसकी कस्टडी का इशू है, तुमको 2, 4, 6 महीने में डिसाइड करना ही चाहिए.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, तुम ये नहीं कर सकते हो. Today, for example, I had a case where the petition for increased access, less access has been pending in one court for 5 years.
Wow.
वो बच्चा 3 साल से 8 साल का हो गया. तो जो बेचारा फादर है वो कह रहा है कि मैंने ये पिटिशन डाली थी जब मैं बच्चा अभी
स्कूल जाने वाला था।
हाँ, और उनकी सेपरेशन को 5 दिन हुए थे। ही सेज अब हमारी सेपरेशन को 5 साल और हो गए हैं। 5 दिन के बाद 5 साल। तो अगर कोई कोर्ट पहले ऑर्डर नहीं करेगी तो बच्चा तो उनके लिए स्ट्रेंजर हो जाएगा और बाप और माँ भी स्ट्रेंजर हो जाएंगे, जिस पेरेंट के पास भी कस्टडी है।
करेक्ट।
कईयों में फादर के पास होगी, कईयों के पास मदर के पास होगी। तो मुझे लगता है क्योंकि एक नई जिंदगी जिसकी कोई गलती नहीं है उसका सवाल है, मुझे लगता है कि कस्टडी मैटर्स को हम बेल को बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट समझते हैं क्योंकि किसी की ज़िंदगी का सवाल है। तो बेचारी कस्टडी में क्या इम्पोर्टेंस नहीं है जस्ट बिकॉज वो मैट्रिमोनियल इशू है। यहाँ भी तो किसी की ज़िंदगी का सवाल है।
Absolutely.
और एक बच्चे की ज़िंदगी का सवाल है जिसके अगेंस्ट कोई केस भी नहीं है। वो बच्चे की क्या गलती है। सो ये पहली बात है। अब आया डाइवोर्स के मामले में। सो डाइवोर्स हर कोर्ट में टाइम अलग अलग लगता है। दिल्ली की कोर्टों में अगर कंटेस्टेड, और ये बात मैंने शुरू में कही कि अब लोग समझौता करने को तैयार हैं। सो 2, 3, 4 साल में इवन कंटेस्टेड केसेस में 60%, 70% को केसेस रिजॉल्व और सेटल हो जाते हैं। कोई मान जाता है अच्छा ये अमाउंट है, कोई धक्के खा खा के थक जाता है, कोई वकील बहुत अनरीजनेबल होता है, कोई अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता, बहुत कारण होते हैं। कोई कहता है कि अच्छा अब मेरी उम्र ज़्यादा हो रही है, आई वॉन्ट टू गेट मैरिड, छोड़ो, अगर कुछ नहीं मिल रहा तो ख़त्म करो,
move on basically,
let's move on.
Yeah.
Some reason or the other comes in 3-4 years, जो पहले में नहीं होता था। सालों साल तुम 10 साल 20 साल बैठते थे। पर अगर कोई लड़ना चाहता है और दूसरी साइड लड़े
तो बहुत,
और दोनों लोग बिल्कुल बहुत युद्ध में हों, तो ट्रायल कोर्ट में, दिल्ली जैसी कोर्ट में 4-5 साल लग जाते हैं। 5 साल उसमें लगते हैं। तुम हाई कोर्ट में जाते हो, हाई कोर्ट में 10-20 साल भी लग सकते हैं।
Dear Lord.
डाइवोर्स के केस में।
That's baffling though.
और लोग मेरे पास आते हैं जब उनकी शादी अभी टूटी हुई हो और बच्चे 1-1 साल के हों, फिर लोग आगे कहते हैं अच्छा मैम अब 2 महीने और डेट होने दो, 6 महीने और डेट होने दो, क्योंकि अब तो हमारा बच्चा शादी की लायक हो गया, 21 साल का हो गया, बच्चे की तो हम इकट्ठे शादी करा देते हैं, फिर तलाक करा लेंगे। बट ये क्या कानून है?
I agree.
ये क्या कानून है जहाँ किसी को अपना हक नहीं मिल सकता? मैं बार बार कहती हूँ बेल बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है। मैं तो बहुत क्रिमिनल मैटर्स करती हूँ और मेरे को ह्यूमन लिबर्टी पे मैं बहुत बोलती रहती हूँ, पर फैक्चुअली भाई ये भी तो एक तरह की लिबर्टी का बंधन है ना।
बिल्कुल,
एक तरह की लिबर्टी में बंधन है। वो जीते या हारे, वो उस स्त्री या पुरुष के मेरिट्स की बात है, पर डिसीजन होना तो बहुत ज़रूरी है।
Yeah. What is the quickest that someone can get a divorce if both parties agree?
In 2 days.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, what is the process like? Like, how do you go about it if somebody was to do it?
So, you have to be separated for 1 year for a mutual consent.
Okay.
You can file. उसके बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट की बहुत डिसीशंस आई, अप डाउन बहुत हुई, पर फाइनल डिसीजन ये आई कि यू कैन मूव फॉर कॉन्डोनेशन ऑफ द 6 months एंड यू कैन गेट इट नेक्स्ट डे। सो 2 बार अपेयर होना पड़ता है, फर्स्ट मोशन और सेकेंड मोशन में, बोथ पार्टीज और थ्रू देयर अटॉर्नीज, एंड 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, अगर दोनों पार्टी सहमत हो। सहमत, म्यूचुअल मीन्स यू आर अग्रेएबल फॉर डाइवोर्स, you are agreeable for maintenance / alimony, you are agreeable for child custody. So, I mean to put this across, There was a case in which I filed a DV, which was a sensitive case. The day DV Act or the month that Domestic Violence Act came into force, which was 2006. It's a 2005 Act जो 2006 में enact हुआ. और उस केस में, because of the stay we got, which was a very sensitive stay, and because they are well-known parties, I don't want to talk about their names, even though it's settled. Next day, the parties settled. So it took 3 days in where parties had decided, one of the parties was not agreeing just because of the court orders and the act and the sensitivity of it. The judge was sensitive, I must say. If a judge is sensitive, it helps. We got the case over in 3 days. At that time, 6-month wala period condonation nahi tha, but we got the first motion in 3 days and we got the next motion in 6 months. But the fact is, in today's day, that 6 months is not required. So if it is right time, right place, or both parties feel they are empowered and the girl knows that she is empowered and doesn't care, and there's provision for the child or whatever many cases now coming which people don't have children, because that's also become very common. It can settle very fast.
That period that you said of 1 year of separation, could 2 people be living in the same house and that still be counted as separation?
Yes. They can be living under the same roof. हमको ये बात जजेस को बहुत समझानी पड़ती है. नहीं भाई, तुम्हारा तो एड्रेस सेम है, ये नहीं हो सकता है. फिर हम उनको कुछ कानून दिखाते हैं, फिर वो कहते हैं अच्छा. क्योंकि देखो, जजेस का रोस्टर बदलता है, पर जो लॉयर्स की नॉलेज है, particularly who know this field, they know कि it can be in 2 people living under the same roof.
Could be separated
and can be separate. तो ये बिल्कुल मुमकिन है, क्योंकि a lot of cases you'll get where you'll have people saying कि मैं बाहर नहीं निकलूंगी till my maintenance is fixed, till my alimony is fixed, and so on. So ये खींचतान होती है. So even when people have become bitter and are fighting, which they shouldn't live in the same house, but they continue to live.
You know, ma'am, another question that I wanted to ask you was, I read somewhere that there was this lady who after many years wanted to change her name back to her maiden surname. And for that, she had to get an NOC from her husband, which in my opinion, from my just very basic knowledge, I just thought, why? I mean, it's her name. She should be allowed to change it back to whatever she wants. Was it relevant to actually get a no objection certificate from her husband? So I wanted to ask you, one, are there any legal advantages of changing one's name after marriage? Because I feel like now I do know of people who are choosing to not or opting to not do it. But for centuries, for all we've known, the mother's generations, or even like my friends, they have changed their names. तो उसका कोई legal benefit अगर नहीं है तो क्या करने की ज़रूरत है? और दूसरा, अगर वापस change करना हो तो NOC क्यों चाहिए?
देखो, सबसे पहले I think I'm being very parochial when I'm saying that women started being treated as a man's property. And because they were being treated as a man's property, so therefore it became Mr. and Mrs. X, because Mr. X was the be-all of the world. तो फिर तुम Mr. X के साथ तुम क्या हो? तुम खाली Mrs. X हो. So whatever the name is. तो ये, this is a very chauvinistic and male-centric concept. और ये मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा ज़्यादा ब्रिटिश टाइम से आया, because before that I remember our grandparents were often called by the surname of the parents from where they came.
Yeah.
Like you are a Chawla or a Anand, they will say Chavli, ko bulao, isko bulao, acknowledging that the home where she comes from.
Yeah.
Now, today's day, person like me hasn't changed her name. I don't know what is the advantage if I had acquired my husband's name, except that I would be wife of a professor. But otherwise, they would have said Professor and Mrs.
Yeah.
And so. But I feel that this, a woman wanting to go back to her maiden name cannot be the subject of any discussion. We had a very interesting case where I appeared. My client had divorced her husband and then she had married another man. और वो बच्चों को अटैचमेंट विद द फॉस्टर फादर ज़्यादा थी. सो दे इंसिस्टेड कि हमारा नाम आप फॉस्टर फादर के नाम के का रखो, विच दे वर नॉट रियली इंटाइटल्ड टू. पर हमने अखबार में निकाल के हमने चेंज कर दिया. एंड द फादर केम टू चैलेंज, बट द दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट सेड नो. There's no reason. If the children want to have this name and they are, even though they are in school and even though they are minors, fine, let them have the foster father's name, then the real father's name. ये तो अभी you are talking of the woman's name. I am talking of a step further. So we have to look at it in a progressive way. I want to call myself Champak Bhumia. I should be able to call myself.
Agreed.
As long as I'm not doing an identity fraud.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I'm not doing any offense under section 419 of the Indian Penal Code, मैं कुछ भी अपने आप को बुलाऊं, बस वो मेरा हक है. Now, come back to the recent controversy. I'm glad you've asked this question. Abhi, there is a question being mooted that women will have to revert to their maiden names after divorces. मुझे इससे absurd proposition नहीं लगी है. People have been married 35 years. My children think that my name is this X. And I've been known as Mrs. X. My children's name is, say, Abhishek X, so and so X. That's the children have got the name of the father. They identify with me because I have that surname. Who is anyone to force? It's the woman's choice on a divorce. She wants to go back to her maiden name. That's the fortune of being a woman. You should have that choice. You can go to that name. You change your name. You don't change your name. It's your prerogative. You're a free person.
Yeah.
You don't change your name, then there's no advantage that in changing name. But if you've changed your name, who can tell you have to go back to the old name?
Yeah.
It's not fair.
It's not fair either way.
It's not fair either way. देखो, जिसकी 2-3 साल पहले शादी हो, many girls want to go back that नहीं, they haven't really developed
sense of identity.
A sense of identity with that name. They may want to go back to the maiden name. But बहुत सी girls ऐसी हैं who have been married 20-30 years. They have children, they have grandchildren. The marriages break up at any time in life. Why should they be forced to change their name? तो मुझे तो ये government की move भी बिल्कुल and women are up in arms against. They're very upset, and let's see, I think there'll be a rollback. I feel they must have done it to empower girls. I can't understand what is the rationale. Because it makes no logic.
I think that, if we should have the freedom of choice. And अगर आपको बहुत strong sense of identity है तो आप मत करो, और अगर आपको करना है तो फिर उसके लिए NOC क्यों चाहिए होएगा? फिर आप खुद से जो आपको नाम रखना है आपको.
Absolutely. what's in a name? I think Shakespeare said it, whoever said it. But what's in a name?
Yeah.
It's a name. And if that's what makes you happy, as long as you're not doing identity theft or a misrepresentation, nobody has any business. It's part of my personal sphere and part of my right as a person, as a human being.
मैम आपका सेम सेक्स मैरिज पे क्या ओपिनियन है? मतलब इट्स अ वेरी वाइडली डिस्कस सब्जेक्ट. I think that the entire sort of LGBTQI community has been fighting for their right to be able to have a legal marriage. What is your opinion on that?
I'm happy you asked this question. I have been one of the lawyers in the Supreme Court fighting before the Constitution bench, and unfortunately we lost. We were saying that the same-sex marriage should be recognized. इस पे Supreme Court की एक दो judgments पहले आई थी with regard to right to privacy and right to sexual orientation. जब 377 amongst consensual couples स्ट्राइक डाउन हुई थी, तब भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि किसी की सेक्सुअल ओरिएंटेशन पे स्टेट का या किसी का हक नहीं है टू इम्पिंज ऑन इट. फिर केस पुत्तुस्वामी आई, उसमें जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ ने दोबारा ये कहा कि माय राइट ऑफ माय सेक्सुअल ओरिएंटेशन इज माय पर्सनल राइट. वो मेरे प्राइवेट स्फीयर में है. It's not interfering, it's part of my fundamental right as a human being. तो अगर मुझे sexual preference और sexual orientation का हक है, जो आर्टिकल 14 और 15 कहता है कि no one will be discriminated on the ground of, on any ground, caste, creed, sex. So sex includes sexual orientation.
Correct.
I may want a same-sex marriage, I may not want a same-sex marriage. But how is that freedom and right of that person impinging on you if you don't want a same-sex marriage? How does it harm a society? It does not harm a society, it doesn't touch a society. And I feel, so इसमें कोर्ट हमारे साथ, the majority opinion, we had two judges with us, Justice Chandrachud's view and Justice Sanjay Kaul's view. But the majority view seemed to say that marriage is an institution established by statute and therefore parliament का हक है डिसाइड करने का, और इन्होंने कहा एक कमेटी बना लो. बट द फैक्ट इज, मुझे लगता है कि ये पार्लियामेंट ऑफ कोर्स कैन डू इट, बट मुझे लगता है जब ये तुम्हारा फंडामेंटल राइट है
तो ये
अंडर आर्टिकल 14 और 15 में, और मैरिज बहुत इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज हुई है. इट्स नॉट दैट 1956 एक्ट से ही हिंदू मैरिज एक्ट केम इनटू एग्जिस्टेंस. मैरिज तो पहले भी होती थी, इसके पहले भी.
करेक्ट.
सो एंड कस्टमरी थी. तो the law can always be tweaked. There are so many laws which have been struck down. So can it be read in? According to me, it can be read in. The US has read it in. साउथ अफ्रीका हैज़ रेड इट इन. पहले साउथ अफ्रीका ने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ की कि ठीक है, यू कांट मैरी, बट तुम्हारा सिविल यूनियन हो सकता है विच इज़ सेम एज सेम सेक्स मैरिज.
आई थिंक यूएस की कुछ स्टेट्स में पहले भी ऐसे ही
अभी भी बहुत इश्यूज हो रहे हैं. इट्स नॉट दैट, बिकॉज वो ना ऐसे करते हैं यूएस में, एक एक एक्ट को जो भी इनैक्टमेंट्स हैं वेयर विच डिफर, एक एक इनैक्टमेंट में धीरे धीरे वो फॉरेज कर रहे हैं. बट साउथ अफ्रीका में पहला केस ये हुआ सिविल यूनियन का. सेकंड केस they said, why also civil union? It should be allowed to be a marriage. and that the court did, not their parliament, not their legislature. तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारे जजेस के पास बहुत प्रेसिडेंट थे ये होल्ड करने के लिए कि द सेम सेक्स मैरिज इज लीगल. अनफॉर्चुनेटली देखो, many people feel their morality is shocked or their, whatever. No, it's not impinging on you. It's not interfering with your being.
Correct. आपको नुकसान नहीं है तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
And अगर उनकी sexual orientation है, which you can see there is. For example, this couple that I represented in Supreme Court, उनकी US में legal marriage हुई है. But one of them is an NRI. The other was an Indian, but one is an NRI. Now they have got a child. Now they want, these two men want to bring back their child for celebrations. During COVID time, they wanted visa. उन्होंने कहा हम तुम्हारी मैरिज ही नहीं रिकग्नाइज करते, हम दूसरे आदमी को वीज़ा ही नहीं देंगे. तुम्हें क्या फ़र्क पड़ रहा है, वो दूसरी कंट्री में भी रिकग्नाइज हैं, तुम इंडिया में भी रिकग्नाइज कर लो. सो आई फील कि किसी चीज़ को तुम कार्पेट के नीचे ब्रश करके तुम उसकी सोल्यूशन नहीं लेते हो. एंड देयर इज़ नो हार्म कमिंग टू यू. इफ़ आई एम बीइंग हार्म्ड, if the society is being harmed, then I can understand. Social mores सबके फर्क हैं.
सबका moral compass, सबका ethical compass सब अलग ही होता है.
बिल्कुल. पहले adultery offense थी, criminal offense, वो decriminalize हो गई. तो ठीक है, moral compass अभी भी बहुत लोगों का है कि नहीं, इसको तो बिल्कुल criminal offense होना चाहिए. पहले ये भी था eye for eye, तुम मारो, हाँ, पर वो भी बदल गया. तो ये सब तो कानून तो लॉ हैज टू इवॉल्व. कहीं पार्लियामेंट करेगी, एंड इफ कोर्ट्स आर मोर प्रोग्रेसिव, कोर्ट्स शुड डू इट इफ इट कैन कम विद इन द कंपस ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स.
आपको लगता है हमारी पार्लियामेंट करेगी?
खैर अभी तो नहीं लगता. अभी बिल्कुल नहीं लगता. आई फेल्ट द लेट अरुण जेटली वॉज द वन पार्लियामेंटेरियन who had said that I don't see why, and he had tried to speak in favor when that 377 ka issue came up, went to Supreme Court in that Suresh Kaushal judgment. तो रिव्यू बाद में फाइल हुआ. उसके पहले दिल्ली लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल में Oberoi Maidens में Arun Jaitley privately spoke, even though he was a member of parliament from the BJP. He said that according to me 377 for consensual couples will be legalized. So धीरे धीरे सारी दुनिया देख रही थी. उनको ये लग रहा था कि Indian courts have constituted a constitution bench और ये legalize हो जाएगी. But well, we have to bow to the decision of the court. क्या पता एक और larger constitution bench constitute हो और वो view change कर लें, but थोड़ा time लगेगा मुझे लगता है.
मतलब हम भी ये काफ़ी intricately follow कर रहे थे, because I think the entire nation was waiting to see what came of this, and हम minute by minute मतलब जब चल रहा था तो देख रहे थे. तो I have to say, I was quite disappointed with the...
Many people are very disappointed, but when you speak to the general man on a one-to-one, when he doesn't understand the emotiveness or the rights or the... ये भी minority हो गए ना?
Correct.
तो if they are a minority, तुम minority के rights recognize करते हो ना? अगर एक आदमी भी फर्क है, तो तुमको उसके राइट्स रिकग्नाइज करने हैं. तुम्हारे पे तो कुछ नहीं आंच आ रही. अगर तुम्हें आंच नहीं आ रही, उसके राइट्स तुम रिकग्नाइज कर लोगे. उसको ये होगा, हम दोनों के जो बच्चा होगा, चाहे अडॉप्टेड चाहे सरोगेसी से, हम उसको प्रॉपर्टी की इनहेरिटेंस दे सकेंगे, हम एक दूसरे की इंश्योरेंस कर सकेंगे, हम एज अ कपल एक दूसरे की ईदर और फॉर्मर अकाउंट कर सकेंगे. These are small little things.
Yeah.
Whether having children, having a family. UN Charter says, the UN Convention says you have a right to have a family. So this is their concept of family. You can't say that family can only be two people who are from opposite sexes.
Yeah, and married.
And
अब तो हम लिव इन रिलेशनशिप्स को भी रिकग्नाइज कर ही रहे हैं. आई थिंक इन द लास्ट एक जो जजमेंट आया जिसमें मेरे को बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगा कि अगर हमें रजिस्टर करना पड़ रहा है एक लिव इन रिलेशनशिप को, तो शादी का महत्व रह गया फिर क्या? फर्क क्या है दोनों में?
ये जो उत्तराखंड में लॉ पास हुआ है कि आप लिव इन रिलेशनशिप को रजिस्टर करो, मुझे लगता है कि उन्होंने ये सोचा था और जस्टिस रंजना देसाई हैज़ गिवन हर इनपुट्स टू इट. पर मुझे लगता है उनको लगा कि हम विमेन को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं क्योंकि लिव इन रिलेशनशिप की विमेन को राइट्स नहीं मिलते. पर डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट देता है उनको एज लॉन्ग एज उन विमेन और मेन का रिलेशनशिप इन द नेचर ऑफ मैरिज हो. मतलब वो किसी और से शादी हुई हो और आपके साथ रहने लगे तो आपको वो हक नहीं होगा इफ यू नो इट, बिकॉज देन यू आर प्लेइंग अ फ्रॉड ऑन द अदर स्पाउस और यू नो वेदर इट्स हस्बैंड और वाइफ. पर ये उत्तराखंड की जो एंड दे आर थिंकिंग दे विल पास इन वेरियस स्टेट्स, मुझे लगता है इट्स नॉट अ वेरी वेल थॉट आउट लॉ. कई लोग शादी का बंधन नहीं चाहते, नहीं तो वो क्यों ना शादी नहीं क्यों ना कर लें. वो शादी नहीं कर रहे. हाँ. वो बंधन नहीं चाहते. अब आप ये देखो कि जैसे यूनाइटेड किंगडम में देयर इज समथिंग नोन एज अ कॉमन लॉ मैरिज. तो कॉमन लॉ मैरिज ये होती है कि आप 2 साल इकट्ठे रह रहे हो एज हस्बैंड वाइफ, देन इवन इफ यू नॉट बीन मैरिड तुम्हें सब राइट्स मिल सकते हैं. तो पर ये तो बहुत ही अजीब है कि आपको पनिश कर देंगे, आपको 5,000 फाइन दे देंगे. मैं लिव इन रिलेशनशिप में रहना चाहता हूँ. एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग डू आई हैव अ राइट. कल को आई एम लिविंग इन अ हाउस with a person of the opposite sex. Can somebody come and say तुमने register नहीं किया, तुम तो actually live in relationship में हो, I may be sharing a flat.
Yeah.
You are in a live in relationship, ठीक है, आपको fine और punishment दी जाएगी. So ये जो कानून है मैंने किसी और देश में नहीं देखा और कहीं उसके बारे में सुना नहीं है, और ना मुझे लगता है कि ऐसा कानून कोर्ट्स में अपहोल्ड होगा जब कोई चैलेंज करेगा. बट क्वेश्चन इज कि कोई चैलेंज करेगा, कोई ना कोई तो चैलेंज करेगा ही करेगा. पर इस कानून का कारण क्या है?
हाँ, मुझे बेसिस नहीं समझ आया. हाँ, थोड़ा
कारण क्या है और इसका फ़ायदा क्या है ये मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा. बिकॉज जो लोग नहीं करना चाहते मैरिज, अगर वो लिव इन रिलेशनशिप में हैं तो तुम उनको फोर्स नहीं कर सकते कि तुम प्लीज़ शादी करो. दिस इज़ अगेन इंटरफेयरिंग विद देयर राइट टू प्रिवेसी एंड देयर फंडामेंटल राइट्स टू लिबर्टी.
आई कुडंट एग्री मोर. मैम, लास्ट क्वेश्चन. आप इतने बिजी डे से आए हो, आपका चलो अभी तो सिर्फ समर में ही मेन ब्रेक आता है, आप इतने बिजी रहते हुए हाउ डू यू अनवाइंड आफ्टर आवर्स? आप रिलैक्स करने के लिए क्या करते हो?
मैं रिलैक्स करने के लिए लोगों से बातें करती हूँ. बट till COVID I don't know how to put on a television. You'll be finding it very funny. जब कभी मैं होटल, बिकॉज आई स्टे अ लॉट इन होटल्स व्हेन आई एम गोइंग फॉर केसेस, तो जो भी आता है ना मेरे बैगेज के साथ, मैं कहती हूँ अच्छा टीवी ऑन कर जाओ और फिर मैं ऑफ कर देती हूँ. बट यू नो इट्स आई एम वेरी आफ्टर कोविड I've started watching COVID time in those 2-3 years because we had time. I started watching Netflix. I love going for holidays.
Where do you like to holiday the most?
Where do I like to holiday the most? This is such a difficult question. I love holidaying everywhere, but I love going to new places. For example, I've not been to Croatia. I fixed last year to go. I fixed 3-4 years ago to go. And I love going to all the forest reserves in India.
Same. I'm going to Javai tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning. Really. I went to Satpura the last and was absolutely, I keep raving about it because we came almost face to face with the tiger. We came near a tigress and we were another tiger eating its prey. And I said,
it's spectacular.
2 days couldn't be so spectacular. So I love going to forest reserves. So I love Ranthambore, I love Corbett, I love Bandhavgarh, I like Satpura. I love the hills. We have a small place in the hills in Mussoorie, and it's very beautifully located. So that is another place which I love going. I love going to... my husband teaches a lot in Cambridge, so I like going to Cambridge. I studied there. So I adore going back to Cambridge all the time and walking the streets, doing nothing, walking and relaxing. And we have a small place in Goa. So that's not a place that I go to often, but but I love the beach. I love water. I love the beach. I love swimming. I play golf once a year.
That's a very healthy way to unwind.
Right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I do all sorts of, and I love walking. So I go for a walk at least thrice a week.
Wonderful.
So, and I love talking, as I said, as I started.
I have had a pleasure talking to you, and this has been, I actually didn't think I would have so much fun having this chat because it's a very serious subject, but I had a blast. So thank you for coming and spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Bani.